All right, should be working here. Okay. I am Drew Badger, the founder of EnglishAnyone.com and the English Fluency Guide. Welcome to another live video here on YouTube. Today we're going to be talking about the preparation gap. And this is an interesting topic that I've probably, I think, covered in various ways over the course of the channel, like as I've done videos talking about why people struggle. But I'm talking about it today, especially because I'm working on this for chapter 7 of my book, and I've gone through like various rewrites of how I want to explain this, but I thought I would help myself if I could talk people through it as well. So we'll give YouTube a moment. It looks like YouTube should be working though. As usual, I'll try to keep this pretty quick. I often say that, and then the video goes for an hour and a half or something like that. But yeah, okay, it looks like we are working live, so that's good to see. Anyway, Fernando says, hi from Angola. Olympia, nice to see you there. My dear teacher is here. I love his classes. Glad to hear it. It's my pleasure. So anyway, let's get into it. I think I maybe told this story last week, kind of. I don't remember. But so my wife asked me recently, what am I working on right now? You know, how is work, etc. And she knows I'm working on a book. And I was just telling her specifically, like, I'm coming to the end of it, and the way I've structured the book, it's not about telling people what to do at first, it's about my discovery of how I realize what I need to do in order to become fluent, and how I finally do get fluent, and how you can too, and how anybody can do this. I was able to do it by myself, although it was just a lot more troublesome, I'll say, and it took longer than having someone to actually guide me through it. But we're going to talk about why that happens in this video. George, nice to see you there too. So we'll be talking about the preparation gap, and I'll explain very briefly what that is as I tell this story. Well, let me tell this story first. So I was talking with my wife about how the teaching part of what I do is actually the easiest part of it. So any lessons, people ask me questions about things, I can erase their doubts or answer questions or whatever to help people understand and feel more confident about their words, so they feel more confident about speaking. That's basically what I do. And the premise or the whole idea behind the way I teach is that if I can prepare you well and make you feel confident and fluent even before you say a word, then when you do speak, you will feel a lot more confident. So this is not about trying to make you work and study and memorize and do all these things on your own, which is what I call the preparation gap. So we'll be talking about that in this video. But I basically said to her, the beliefs that people have about learning are really the more difficult part of my job, trying to help people see things in a different way. Because if you've been following my channel for a while, you probably already agree with a lot of the things I say. Maybe you don't agree with all of them, and that's fine. But you probably are on board, so it's like you agree. There's a good expression to be on board with something. Like, imagine a vehicle traveling and like, oh, I'm on that same vehicle. Like, are you on board with these ideas or on board with the plan? It just means you agree with that thing. So presumably people who watch my channel are here because they're actually benefiting from the channel and learning things and feeling more confident about speaking. But when I was explaining to my wife that one of the things people believe is that English learning or language learning generally or developing fluency has to be difficult. So that's just a foundational belief that by the time I'm explaining it in chapter 7, people should not be believing anymore, because hopefully they've seen that it's actually quite quick and easy if you learn things in the right way. So this is not about magic. It's just that when you see that the typical way people learn is actually much more difficult than what I recommend. So it's much slower, and typically it's more difficult because of this preparation gap. All right, so I'm going to get into this now, but I was asking my wife again, like, so you think language learning not necessarily should be difficult, but that's basically the only way it is. And she was just shaking her head like, yeah, you know, because she's a native Japanese speaker and her English is really good, but she, you know, spent a lot of time studying, and she still teaches our own children now, you know, especially when they're learning Japanese. She's trying to get them to understand things and drill and like writing Japanese in a kind of traditional way. So I said to my wife, do you know the difference between a sit on a chair and sit in a chair? Now, I asked her this because we got this question from a Fluent for Life member. I think he had heard it somewhere, but he was just asking like, yeah, I'd heard that you can do both of these things. And again, whenever you hear something like this, it's like, wait a minute, you could sit on a chair and sit in a chair. How does that work? So usually what happens when people are learning languages, they usually have a kind of one-to-one. Here's what you say in your language, and here's the English translation of that thing. And you might learn, okay, like for Japanese, it'd be like isu ni suwaru. So like you're going to sit in a chair, or you might sit on a chair, whatever they teach you in school for that. Usually like sit in a chair, but it could be sit on a chair. But natives will actually use both. And often people, when they hear something like that, they think, okay, wait a minute. And so I asked my wife, because I was telling her this story of how a learner had asked me this and I had explained it to him. I said, do you know the difference between sitting on a chair and sitting in a chair? And she said, no. I said, would you like to know the difference between sitting in and sitting on? And she said, yeah, you know, like, tell me. So again, what's happening is there's a doubt about, like, okay, what do these mean? And is there a difference between them? Does it matter? Because if you have a doubt about something, then you won't know which you should be using in a conversation, and you will feel nervous about that. So this is basically what stops a lot of people from speaking. So this is just one example of a kind of doubt or a question or a frustration or something that would stop you from speaking. So other ones would be issues with pronunciation, or maybe you're unsure about grammar or whatever. But any kind of doubt like this, unless you end that doubt, then you're probably going to struggle when you speak. And so I wanted to just show my wife that actually it's quite simple, and I've given her lots of lessons or whatever, but you know, I teach her things and I teach my own kids things all the time at home to help them understand English as well. And so I said, well, let's take a look at this example. So you're going to sit on a chair and sit in a chair. So really what's happening, let me just draw a quick chair over here. Pretty good. Usually my drawings are not very good, but this one is a pretty good chair, I think. So often what happens if you ask someone like, hey, you could like please have a seat or just sit on a chair or sit in a chair. When we're talking about on, if you're sitting on a chair, it's usually referring to this flat area, the flat space, like a flat plane. So we've just got, you know, a basic, you know, like a two-dimensional shape. We got this direction and we got this direction over here. So this is sitting on this flat thing, just like I might put something on this whiteboard here. And so we've got the the flat area over here, and this is when you would sit on a chair. Now, natives are not thinking about this so deeply because we use really either one of these interchangeably. It's just you can sit on a chair or sit in a chair. But when we talk about sit in a chair, we're thinking more about a three-dimensional space that's like all the way up like that. So you're kind of sitting here in the example, and I think the student's actual example was like, do you sit on a lap or sit in a lap? So on, we'll just put on or in. So your lap, I'll just draw a picture of a person here sitting down. So here are your feet, kind of coming out like that. Here's your body and your arms this way. Your lap is this area over here, your lap. So often children will sit on a parent's lap, like you might sit on your mom's lap. Or you could also say we sit in your mom's lap. And so I think that was the student's actual question, but it works the same way for both of these. So here we have a situation, again, it's a flat plane of sitting on something, or we can talk about kind of sitting in like it's a 3D space. And typically we have this idea of a 3D space because many chairs also have armrests on the side. So if I can erase this, clean that picture up just a little bit for you. When we look at a chair, this is a chair with no armrests. So it has no an arm rest. So an arm rest is something like this. You might have it on the side so you can put your arms up on the side of the chair. And you can see how even this, it really makes it look like there's ding, 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 like some kind of three-dimensional box where you're sitting in that particular thing, okay? So again, I'm explaining all this because I'm trying to help you understand how natives would think about it if they spent a lot of time thinking about this. Most of them probably are not, but this is for learners who do often think about these kinds of things and want to know why. Everybody wants to know why we say things like that, because when you have a why, that's a doubt that often will stop you from speaking. So, in the same idea, to sit on someone's lap, you could sit on someone's lap here, or you could sit in someone's lap. Like you could imagine a mom or parent holding a child on their lap. So in this sense, like you can feel it's a three-dimensional space. They're kind of sitting in someone's lap or sitting on someone's lap. And you can use both of these. They're both fine for talking about chairs or sitting on a lap. And I think the learner was also asking, like, what about sitting on someone's shoulders? So why is it sit on or sit in your lap, but not sit in your shoulders? And I said, well, I mean, there isn't really, you're only kind of getting on top of something up here and, you know, kind of at this level, there's nothing, you could kind of imagine a 3D space there, but with a chair, sometimes we have the armrests or sometimes you have your parents creating this three-dimensional space there. All right. So on your shoulders, we don't say sit in your shoulder because you can't really get inside the shoulder anywhere. There isn't, I mean, it's technically the same thing with a three-dimensional space here, but you really create that much more actually with using your arms or arm rests or something like that, where we have like a chair. Even if the arm rests are not there, you could be sitting on a chair or sitting in a chair. Now, if we have a bench, so a bench, like let's say we've got like a piano bench. So a piano bench has no back to it. This 3D space is also created by the back of the chair. So we've got kind of you can imagine, like even with the back of the chair going out like this as the three-dimensional space. So even if there are no armrests on the side, you can still imagine it. But there's really nothing, you know, for the shoulders, there's nothing back here. It's kind of like sitting on a bench, a piano bench like that. And so typically we do not say sit in the piano bench because there's no side at all on it. It's just flat all around. So you sit on a stool, like if you go to a restaurant, there might be a bar and you have some different stools up here that people are sitting on. We wouldn't sit in a stool because it's got no side, it's got no back. So nothing that really creates a three-dimensional space. Okay. So I gave my wife, you know, a pretty simple, quick explanation, and that was to show her that when you understand something quickly, and you can understand things quickly, then you feel confident about using them. Okay? Pretty simple. All right, now when I'll explain a little bit more about the preparation gap in just a minute. Let me go back and answer and just see if anybody had any questions here. Let's see. Couramment says how to learn grammar without memorizing the rules, but through different contexts and situations. So that's what I teach in my book. That's one of the first things. In chapter 5, I go into the detail of learning vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciation, and how you can do that like a native without studying rules. That's exactly what it is. If you'd like to learn more about that, though, I've talked about that. Either you can watch more recent videos where I'm talking about specifically chapter 5, or just talking about the book generally, or you can just go directly to the book and get the book at the link in the description below this video. CNC, nice to see you there. Pedro says, Jesus Christ is Lord. Taco says, I don't understand the nuance of the difference between go through and come through and get through. It depends on situations, though. This is similar to Japanese, actually, where it depends on your perspective. So let's say we have something like going through a problem, or I came through something. You see if blue works. Oh, blue works pretty well. All right. Now, for people who don't know, Taco is asking about different phrasal verbs. These are very, very commonly used in spoken English. It's usually a combination of a verb and a preposition. You don't really need to know that, but it's just these are things that are typically describing more complicated ideas, but in simple ways. And that's why lots of children learn these, and I recommend learners focus on learning these. I made a whole program about it called The Visual Guide to Phrasal Verbs, and that's also in Fluent for Life. Anyway, if we look at something like a pipe like this, typically phrasal verbs begin with some kind of physical origin in this way. So we can imagine someone going through kind of into it like that and coming out this side. Now, depending on where you're speaking from or how you're describing this, if you're going from here and you're talking about it like I'm about to go through the pipe, so I'm about to go through, you're talking about it from this perspective. So maybe tomorrow I have an exam to go through. So like I'm here, this is the night before the test, this is the test experience, I have to go through some kind of challenge or trial or something like that. So it's literally thinking about it in a physical way, the way you might think about actual traveling through a pipe, okay? So if I'm going through something, this is the physical idea. We can also use that same idea for something non-physical, like taking a test, or again, having some troubling experience, like I'm going through a divorce right now. Okay, I'm going through a difficult part of my life, or I'm going through some trouble at work, or I'm going through whatever. So typically we talk about going through as usually some kind of challenging situation. I'm going through it. But again, it depends on where you are in the process. So if you're here and you're not in it yet, you can talk about something like tomorrow or next week or soon I will go through something. But you could be inside the pipe already and you say, well, now I'm going through a particular thing. So I'm going through a tough time. I'm going through a difficult situation. I'm going through whatever. Now, if you're on the other side, you can say, I just came through, or I just came out of. You can also say that. But there are usually multiple ways to express these things, just like I gave the example of sitting on or sitting in a chair. So one of the things that you learn when you actually learn with me or you learn with native speakers is that you see there are many ways to express even the same idea. But typically in a regular lesson, you get maybe one, usually one, maybe more than that, but usually just one, and it's typically a translation of something, as I mentioned earlier in the video. So you can start here, and then how you want to express that just depends on where you are and how you're describing that. So I just came through, I'm over here, I'm talking about I just came through Or you can also say it as I just went through a particular thing, okay? But try to think about it first physically, understand what's happening, and then all we're doing is imagining that as a non-physical situation, like taking a test or having some other challenge or thing like that. But typically, go through is a very commonly used native way to express this kind of moving through something, and typically for more challenging or sometimes negative experiences. But Taku, let me know if that makes sense or if you have any questions about that. So if we're talking about like your examples here, I don't understand the difference of the nuance between go through and come through and get through. Again, there's not really like much of a difference there other than just multiple ways of expressing the same thing. But when we talk about come through or go through, it's often where we are in the experience. So if I'm here, I'm talking about the future. If I'm here, maybe I'm talking about the past, or something like I just came out of the pipe now. So I just, J-U-S-T, came through some challenge. Or I just got through some challenge. Both of those are fine. They mean the same thing. Typically and I have a whole video here on YouTube where I talk about got and how it works, but the broader meaning of got is usually to obtain something. So we're taking a position. It's almost like I was here and now I got this position instead. But came is more talking about the motion through a particular thing. Okay, but this is me explaining this as someone with experience, knowing the language well, understanding how it works. But natives, the average native is probably not thinking about it very deeply. Anyway, this is why you can have multiple ways of expressing things and they would all be fine. And there's not really a meaningful or important nuance between them. Okay, so just like sit on a chair or sit in a chair, it can be helpful to understand the difference between why we might say one or the other, but natives are often not thinking about it so deeply. But again, typically adult learners are, when we're trying to understand something, especially because we learn it usually from one thing, like one translation in our own language, and then we learn it in a new thing, now we want to understand why everything works. But if you tell children, hey, sit on that chair, or hey, sit in that chair, the child will just sit down. They're not thinking deeply at all about, okay, why did he say sit on the chair or sit in the chair? The child only realizes I can use both of those things for this situation. Okay? So last point I'll make about this is, again, typically a learner, like especially an adult learner, they begin with something in their native language and then they have a translation to get that into English. So I'll just put the J here for Japanese, for example, but whatever your language is, it works the same way. Most people, they learn a way of saying something, so one expression, and then one way we would say this in English. And so it becomes more challenging when you're trying to connect your native language to English rather than trying to what a native does, which is actually connecting a situation to a whole bunch of different ways we might express something. So that's one big difference between typically the way I teach versus the way typical lessons would teach something. So in a textbook, they're probably not going to give you 5 different ways to express something. But natives do get that. So a child will hear, have a seat, sit on the chair, sit down, sit over there, sit in the chair, whatever. They might hear a few different examples of that, and they will understand, okay, all of those are correct, and they don't question any of that vocabulary. It's only later, as kids get older, that maybe they start wondering why we say something. Like, think about a word like triangle. If you teach a child this is a triangle, they're not going to argue with you about that. They will just say, oh, okay. And then the job of the child is just to remember that that's a triangle. And usually they remember that because they hear it so many times. So this is a triangle, that is a triangle, that is a triangle. You know, I draw different kinds of triangles. And it's only later that they learn something like the prefix tri and they make a connection like, oh, like it's literally 3 angles, and that's why we call it a triangle. And they think, they have that aha moment of that's why it works. So we can have like a tricycle, like a vehicle with 3 wheels in the same way. It's like, okay, that's a 3-wheeled vehicle for kids. We have a tricycle, but we have try. Now the child actually makes the connection that try by itself means something. So there is the word triangle, but try actually means something by itself. All right. And again, the whole point is in how we learn, children are first just accepting all of these different examples, and they don't really think so much about like how exactly it's different or what is the difference really between sit on a chair and sit in a chair, but that's why we would do those things. So adults, we do care. That's why I spend a lot of time answering these questions, because adults have these doubts that stop them from speaking. All right, let me go through, check a last few comments. And then we'll make sure everyone is clear on the preparation gap. Although I think I've alluded to it. I've kind of showed a little bit more about how it works already. All right, but Taco, let me know if that makes sense. Alessandro says, hey, and CNC says, so in other words, it's when the chair has an armrest like on the plane. Yeah, so you could, again, natives are not thinking about it that deeply. If I have a chair, even without armrests on it, the back of the chair creates the 3D space. So it doesn't matter if you have like an example of like we've got armrests or not. It doesn't matter. But a bench has no back and has no sides, and so in that case we would only say you sit on the bench. Nobody really sits in a bench unless you're actually kind of sitting like, you kind of slide down into it in some way, okay? So the point is, it's not important to say one or the other, but now you can understand why we would say that, and you can use both of them with confidence. That's the point. So to sit in the chair or sit on the chair, or you can sit in somebody's lap, like you can think like a chair, this is basically the same thing as a parent. Here's like the parent's head and the parent's arms over here, and the lap is like this, the same idea. So a child can sit here. A child can sit on someone's lap, or they can sit in someone's lap, okay? But you wouldn't sit on or in someone's head. That would be 2 different things. Like there's no back space here. So if I'm sitting here, then I'm sitting on someone's head, or I'm sitting on someone's shoulders over here. But I would not be sitting in someone's head, because that would actually be inside the head at that point, okay? But again, seeing examples and multiple examples are what make it clear. But it's not like you have to, as a learner, you're often looking for specific rules about this, but natives aren't thinking about it that way. They're just saying, in this situation, here are a variety of things you could use. It's just a different way of learning the language. So it's the way I teach and the way natives learn the language, but it's different from what people typically do. And that's what creates the preparation gap that we'll talk about in just a minute. All right. Did I miss anybody else? Let's see here. All right. Richard says, a long time no see. Julie says, hello, Andrew. And Katie says, what English books, movies, or songs do you recommend for practice? You should get my book. Just get the book by clicking on the link in the description below this video, and that actually talks about all of that stuff. Or you can also watch videos on my channel which talk about those things too. If you search my channel for these videos or these books get you fluent, it will show you exactly what those are. CNC says again, I'm going through a huge business next year. I came through it. It was a hard situation for us. Well done, you got through it. So you wouldn't, I'm going to go through a huge business. You wouldn't say I'm going through a business. You would say I'm going through a business restructuring or a business bankruptcy or something like that. You don't like just go through a business like that. It's more talking about the experience of something like that. And then after that experience, whatever that is, then you came through it or you got through it or something like that. So I had a challenging experience. I came through it all right, or I got through it. And again, like when we talk about like getting somewhere, it's more imagine I'm here and I want to get to this location over here. So get means you have something, you obtain that thing, but it's less about like the distance or the traveling there. So if I come through or I go through, we're talking about the motion and the distance, but get is almost like I'm here and now I'm over here. It's like kind of teleporting to that thing. Like, oh, I have to get over here. I'm not really thinking about this so much. I'm just thinking about the destination rather than the way we might travel to that destination. Okay, these are very subtle ideas, and again, in a regular conversation, it usually doesn't matter. Like I have to get to the airport. Obviously, I have to travel there somehow. I need to take a taxi or the train, or someone will drive me or whatever. But again, instead of I'm going to the airport, I'm talking about needing to obtain that place. I need to get to that place. So again, these are subtle differences, but it's helpful to know them, although you don't have to worry so much about using them in conversations. But again, trying to understand why natives would use multiple things, it's helpful to see it this way. Jonix says, hello teacher, how are you? I am so happy to be here learning English with you. You are the best English teacher. Well, you are too kind. Medela says, hello from Indiana. Look at that. Chronogo says, how to learn grammar with your method. You would learn anything the same way with what I do, which is basically just figuring out for particular situations like here. So this is an example of grammar, like sit on or sit in. This is grammar right here. But grammar is really just, it's how do we organize the words so that we get to see what language is created or what meaning is created by something. So in some cases, we might have sit on and sit in, and they both mean the same thing. And so when we're talking about learning grammar, it's not like I should come over to my textbook here and then start, I'm trying to memorize rules or things like that. It's about connecting the meaning to the words and then also seeing variety of these things. So that way we don't just see sit on, we see like maybe sit near or sit by or something like that. So we can see other examples and then understand the grammar from context by seeing it the same way natives do. So in terms of how I teach grammar, that's basically it. But what I'm really trying to do is help you understand things like a native, like you're learning English here as a first language. So you're not learning it through translations. I'm trying to give you, with the situation, helping you connect the situation to the vocabulary. So it doesn't matter if you're just learning a word, or you're learning grammar, or you're learning pronunciation. All of these things are connected when you learn this way. But I explain a lot more about this in detail in my book, and that's why I wrote it. So I wanted to make sure people actually understand why they might struggle to learn things, and we'll talk actually more about that right now in this video. Hammond says, hello. Lux says, sir, did you learn Japanese language all? What do you mean? I don't know the whole language, no. But I also don't know every word in English either, but I can have conversations and speak with people just fine. I describe how that happens in the book. A says, good morning from Thailand, and C says, I was trying to use all the expressions go through, come through, and get through in only sentence. Yes, no, I understood what you were trying to do. I was just saying, like, go through a business doesn't make sense. Like it's you don't go through a business unless you're, I don't know, like eating businesses or something like that. Like I could imagine something like that would work where you could use that grammatically, but typically it's a particular event or situation where I'm going through some kind of trouble, not just going through the business, something like that. Like you could talk about a person eating like I've got a bunch of these markers up here and I love to eat markers. I'm just like, oh, wow, I'm going through these markers really quickly. So that could mean like I'm eating them, or I'm writing so much that I use all the ink incredibly incredibly fast. And so I'm going through all of those. And this is where, as you get more examples of things, you start to build a stronger network of what things mean. So in the same way that we have going through an experience, I could also talk about like going through using all of a resource or a battery power or something like that, you know. Anyway, hopefully this makes sense, but when people ask me about kind of generally how do you learn grammar, it's like, instead of trying to study rules or memorize structures, we want to see, in this situation, how do we describe it? And so children aren't thinking about like what is the preposition or what is the verb or whatever. People want to know like, how does it work? In this situation, what do I say? And so that's why I describe this process in the book as well. All right, CNBC, CNC. I always think like CNBC, like the news network, whenever I see your name. But anyway, yeah, I can usually come up with some way to use grammar, even if it seems incorrect for a situation. And then Couramment says, I've just got the book, but I don't know where to set up the account to log in. There is no sign up option. Well, if you purchase the book, you will get a link to your account that has the book in it, or if you already had an account, then the book should be sent there. If you don't get it, then send us a receipt. Make sure your email address is correct and all that. But if you email us at info@englishanyone.com, we will make sure you get it. Global Recorder says, good morning. I am intermediate level. I want to reach advanced level in general. How long does it take? It depends on what you're trying. Like, what do you mean by intermediate and what you mean by advanced? And also, you don't try to get fluent in like the whole language. It's more about becoming fluent and confident in saying individual words and phrases like this. So right now we're focusing on just this one very simple example of sitting on something versus sitting in a chair versus sitting on a chair. And so if you can understand this one point by itself and you understand that quickly, now you feel more confident about using it. And then you move on to the next thing, but that's generally how this works. So it's more about like going from kind of beginner or intermediate to advanced about how it works. You know, like we understand before, maybe you first learn an example, sit on a chair, but then you go somewhere and someone says, oh, you can sit in this chair over here, and you think, oh wow, that's a new thing. Like I always thought English speakers say sit on a chair, but that's usually because they're not getting a variety of examples that show how natives will express things in different ways. All right, so you become fluent in things as you understand them. This is another thing I'll be talking about in chapter 7 when I release it. It's been a challenging chapter to work on, figuring out exactly how I want to describe it. So I write a version of it and I don't like it and I want to do it again, but it's coming. Anyway, this is one of those ideas that I'll be talking about in there. But for people who do not have the book yet, the actual method, that's all covered through chapter 6. So you don't have to wait to get that. That's immediately available for people. From chapter 7, so chapter 7 and 8 is more talking about conclusions and what we learn about this and why these things work the way they do. All right, let's see. Kathy says, I feel I can speak fluently when I speak with myself or my sister, but when it comes to talking to strangers, I can't. Yeah, that's a common experience for people, and it could be psychological. It could also be not really knowing the language as well as you think you do. It just, you have to think about the situation like, am I struggling to speak with this stranger because I actually don't feel confident about my words, or maybe I'm worried about my accent or they might judge me or whatever. So there's more than just the language itself when you're communicating with people. But it's easier to give help to you when you give more information about how you feel or what you think the actual issue is. But both of those problems, it doesn't matter whether it's psychological or like linguistic, an actual problem with understanding the language. It's easy to solve both of those things. But I would recommend end, you spend time thinking about what exactly is the issue there. LF says, hi there, sir. How do native speakers remember all these different verbs like wipe on, wipe out, wipe off, etc.? It's typically by making. All right. Well, let me make it more like. That's a good question. But I talk about this in the book also, and it's about building a network that lets you understand how the language works. So using your examples of wipe, let's say a native speaker, they learn like wipe off the board. So I need to, erase something, or there's, a stain or something. I need to wipe that off. I need to clean that thing to wipe off the board. Now, what a native is doing when they hear that the first time, maybe a parent says, hey, can you wipe that stuff off of the table. It's time for dinner, clean off the table. You need to wipe off the dirt on the table. And so in that way, they're connecting this vocabulary with a particular situation, which I talk about over and over and over again, but especially in chapter 6 of the book, where I'm talking about this idea of learning from situations. So what happens is, number one, there's a lot of repetition, but it's what I call naturally varied review. So you'll hear different people, like your mom will tell you to wipe something off, or your father or your teacher or other people, you'll hear it on TV. So lots of repetition makes it easy to remember, but it's also varied repetition. So you hear slightly different things. Like maybe I'm joking around at home and my mom is in a bad mood and she says, wipe that smile off your face. Wipe that smile off your face, So that's another common example. It's like I have a smile, like I'm kind of laughing about something. Maybe my mom makes a mistake and I laugh at her about that and she's angry at me for laughing. And she says, wipe that smile off your face. So same kind of idea. They're hearing a variety of examples, not just wiping something physical like, okay, let me wipe off this marker. So I wiped it off. You can see it's like this process of like wiping something, like a windshield wiper on your car, those on the front glass like this, those are called your wipers because they are wiping your window. Or I might wipe like a baby's butt after changing the diaper. I literally like wipe something off like that. So again, as you're seeing all these, you're really building a network of vocabulary. It's like, okay, we've got wipe off. Now it's like, because of the connections I build with these different examples, I wonder if we could also say wipe something on. I wonder. And so natives will begin actually making these other connections like, okay, if we've got wipe off, maybe we also have wipe on, or maybe we've got wipe up, or we've got, wipe down or something like that. And we do. And interestingly, we can also just create new phrasal verbs like this, and other natives will understand what we're saying because, again, they have this network already of how the language works. So when you're talking about, how is it possible that natives learn all this stuff? It's because it's much easier to integrate all of this information when you learn it as a system rather than what non-natives typically do, which is a bunch of disconnected words in a list or in an app or something like that. Okay, class, today we're going to learn 20 phrasal verbs. Here's the first one and the second one, and I'll just give you a list of a bunch of random stuff like that. Not a very efficient way to learn. It seems like you're getting a lot of information, but then you forget it because you haven't integrated all of this stuff, like this spider web over here. So the spider web, I talk about this in the book also, the spider web idea. It's not a very good spider web, but the spider web idea works because if you lose a connection, you've got other connections there also to support it. That's the whole idea of a network. It's the strength of the memories and all these different examples, and each time you learn a new one, that makes the whole system stronger. Okay? So when a native hears like wipe something off, They might also hear like wipe something up, like I've got some water or something, I'm like wiping it and kind of picking it up at the same time. So I need to wipe off. I can wipe off, like remove it, again, like on versus off, or I could talk about like wiping it, or I could also talk about like wipe down the table. So working at a restaurant, I might wipe down the table. I'm just kind of getting wet. I'm putting water on the table and like wiping it down, you know, making sure it's nice and clean. So you can see how all these things, as you hear them, it just makes sense because you've understood the connection. Are you getting these aha moments? Do you feel like, I get it, as Drew is explaining this, like you're feeling the connections happening? So it's basically an automatic way of learning rather than having someone just give you a list like, we're going to look at wipe off, and now here's a completely different phrasal verb of like stand over. It's much more difficult to try to create a network out of two things that, I mean, especially to a non-native, they don't have like an obvious connection. Maybe you could think of one, but again, that's why we talk about like wipe off, wipe over, wipe down, wipe up. You can imagine what those situations would be like if we had something like that. So I could wipe down, wipe up, wipe off, wipe over, wipe into. You know, I could even create these things as I'm talking about them and describe a situation when it would work. So non-natives are thinking more like, what is the official language that's okay and correct to use? A native is more thinking, what's the best way to describe this situation? And maybe I create some new vocabulary to do it, but another native would understand what I'm talking about. All right. Good questions, though. Let's see here. And did I skip anybody? Okay, I did. All right, Taco again says, thanks, Drew. Which three those phrasal verbs you use depends on how you're feeling or where you take positions? Yeah, that's the basic idea. And again, you don't have to think so thoroughly or so deeply about like, oh no, like, am I coming through the experience or did I just get through the experience? Nobody really cares. It's not so important. It's more generally, there are different ways you could describe something and a lot of them are all correct. So the important thing is more not trying to think of a rule, but seeing different examples of how natives describe things. That way you get the reassurance from natives that, okay, this native said it this way, that means it's correct. It's like me learning Japanese. Like I wonder, like, could I say it this way or could I say it that way? It's a lot easier for me to just see a bunch of Japanese people explaining things and then I know, okay, like all of these things are correct. So I might learn a little bit more deeply about why they might say one thing rather than something else, but most people are not thinking that carefully about their language. And let's see. Thank you. I got the account right after you said it. Beautiful. All right. Tuck says that makes sense. And Kronigan, is purchase more formal than buy? Not necessarily. You know, you can use both of them. I want to purchase something or buy something. I guess buy is generally, I guess, more casual because it's shorter. And typically, I don't know. Yeah, I wouldn't like it's not. You know, it's not a meaningful distinction, even when we have somebody in a professional situation like a company buyer or a purchaser. Like we have that as a thing, like people who go buy things from other companies or whatever, they could be called a buyer or a purchaser. So again, there are multiple ways to say things, and it's better just to reassure yourself, to erase your doubt by seeing examples of how natives are talking about things, and you will likely hear many different examples of that. CNC says, what about this? I am going to go through a major business challenge next year, but I'm pretty sure that I'll get through it. Yes. And so if you're talking about I'll get through it, like you can be talking about that in the future or as if you've already gone through it, that kind of thing. Next question, how do native speakers learn about V1, V2, V3? What do you mean? V1, V2, V3, what? What specifically are you talking about? Now, it's interesting, like, they're often linguistic terms, like even phrasal verbs, which we're talking about in this video. I could ask a whole bunch of people what phrasal verbs are, native speakers, and they would not be able to tell me. So they're not thinking deeply about something. Instead, what they will say is, okay, if here's a word or a grammar point or whatever, they're just thinking, when do you use that? Or when I'm in this situation, here's what I say. So I would encourage you to think more like a native speaker like that rather than whatever you're asking me about here. I want to make sure I'm clear about that. So let me know if you have a more specific question. But in general, the idea is to make sure you connect vocabulary with situations the same way natives do. And if you're thinking about more complex like linguistic terms or whatever, like language terms for specific grammar or whatever, then natives would probably not know it. Let's see here. Hold on, I got it. All right, had a sneeze there. Rap says hello from Poland. Raza says the whole story lesson speak right. DV says hello. Can I ask you about vocabulary? When study English like a native speaker, we should look up a dictionary and explain words in English 100%. But if when we still haven't understand it. All right, so there's some basic errors in your writing. So this is a good example of someone who knows a lot of English but isn't still putting it together correctly. But in general, like how I'm describing in this video, the point is really more about understanding a specific thing by seeing how it's used. So like the example of wipe off versus wipe up or wipe down, if you get a bunch of examples of that, that's what will help you understand and make sure you use the grammar. Okay. So you don't have to think about like, okay, I need to look words up in a dictionary. You don't want to do this where you're just getting a bunch of lists of words or grammar points or whatever. The point is to make an actual connection. You're creating this network, this web in your mind, and that's what allows you to speak fluently. So it's not just knowing a bunch of random words, it's actually making a connection and feeling certain about what you want to say. Let's see, Deborah says, give a like to help her. I don't know who that is referring to, but feel free to like this video if you do. Hammond says, bless you. Thank you for that. LF says, that's awesome, Drew. Maybe learning how words like up, down, on, and off, and others usually affect the main verb. Yes. So this is actually part of what I do in the visual guide to phrasal verbs. The whole point is to focus on this, to train your mind. It's not just about teaching you a bunch of phrasal verbs. There are like, 600 of them covered in the program. But the point is more to give you that sense for how to use the language like a native. So as you get enough examples, you begin thinking like a native, so you speak like one. And Crew Ramil says, is there any difference between I have lived here for 10 years and I have been living here for 10 years? No, not in that situation. Corona says, how do you respond? You would say, how do you respond when someone's sneezing in English? Like Hamid just did. Saying, bless you. So usually, I could say like, excuse me or something, but typically, you would say like, bless you, like my soul is, coming out or whatever. I don't know if that's actually true, but people do say, bless you for that. And then I think people say something, whatever. Hello, professor, how can I better my pronunciation? You need to do two things. The first one is hear the differences between individual sounds. So make sure you learn those like a native. So I recommend studying phonics. I have an app that will allow you to do that. So it will let you teach yourself the rules of phonics. That's called Frederick, and you can click on the link in the description below this video to get it. I talk also more about pronunciation, the two parts of this, in my book. So the first part, again, is understanding the individual words, and the second part is understanding how these words connect and how natives might blend their sounds or eliminate certain sounds when they're speaking, like instead of saying want to, we would say wanna, for example. So that's how you would improve your pronunciation and listening as well. All right, looks like we got to the end of comments for now, but let's go into, very quickly, oh my goodness, it's 53 minutes, and now I'm finally talking about this idea. So the preparation gap, and you can see examples of the preparation gap up and down in this video. So usually what happens when people are learning a language, we'll just put a box over here for some kind of lesson. And then over here, we've got I'll just say RS for some kind of real situation, like the actual conversations or seeing movies and TV shows or anything like that. So when we begin with a lesson, typically you learn something like the examples we've had today, like sit on a chair versus sit in a chair or something like that. But you would learn that, and then in a real conversation, maybe you hear something different. So in the lesson I hear sit on a chair, and then in a real conversation someone says sit in. And if you didn't learn sit in a chair in a lesson, this is where there's a disconnect, where you're basically like, okay, wait a minute, the teacher told me this, the native speaker said this, what is correct now? And so now you have a situation where you're feeling doubt about this particular thing. So this is just one example of it. But basically what happens with typical language learning, and it really doesn't matter how you do it. It could be lessons in a classroom, it could be private teachers or apps or AI or whatever you want to use. But usually what happens is it's giving you some information, but then it's on you as a learner to actually prepare yourself to speak. Now, some lessons are better than others. Some teachers are better than others. Maybe people are able to help you understand things and prepare you. But if you learn something here and then aren't prepared for it over here, that's where you get stuck. So if the lesson does not teach you something, now you have to get that yourself. And this is, we'll just abbreviate this as the prep or the preparation gap. And this is the thing that really what I'll be talking about in chapter 7, about how people can know. You can know a lot of English, you can understand a lot because you've had lessons, but if you don't actually feel prepared to use what you know and also adapt in real conversations, now you have to do this yourself. So you will go through the preparation gap, and probably most of the people watching this video right now are in this phase of learning. So like when I mentioned the story at the beginning of this video about how my wife said learning should be hard, but you just expect it as a learner to be difficult. But what's really happening is that most lessons are not preparing you for real communication. They will teach you some English, but if you don't feel prepared when you actually speak, then that's the fault of the lesson. It's not the fault of you as the learner. Okay? The whole point of a lesson is to help you understand something. That's why I do this where people ask me a question. We're in a lesson right now. You ask me a question about something. I don't understand why it works or how we can use this. If I can answer that for you and make you feel confident, then you will be able to use it, and you will go directly here to be able to use that in a real conversation. Okay? So most people are actually learning like this. What I try to do on my channel is actually do the whole thing for you. So instead of a typical lesson and then you go through the preparation gap, hopefully, if you can find some people to practice speaking with or whatever, maybe you get through this. But many people get stuck here for many years. And a lot of them do not reach fluency because they never feel confident and certain about what they want to say, unfortunately. But for me, my job, like the difference between what people would typically do here, is I'm trying to give you the learning and the preparation as one thing. So if I can make you feel confident and certain about your words, then there is no gap. Like I just get you directly to being able to have conversations. Okay? So all the questions people have, that's feeling stuck in the preparation gap over here, because you don't have anyone to tell you what's correct or what's not correct, or how to learn things so you can do it efficiently. And this is, again, where people get stuck for a very long time. But you've seen examples of that in this video already. When people have a question about something, it means that they learned it somewhere but don't actually understand it well enough to feel confident about using it. So they are stuck in this preparation gap here where you have to prepare by yourself. And my point about all of this, like for this video, is that language learning does not have to take a long time. It doesn't have to be difficult. It's just what people typically do is often very frustrating, and it takes a long time if you reach fluency. All right, but it doesn't have to be that way. So that's why I keep making these videos, just to show that when you understand something, okay, if I learn sit on, but then the native says sit in, and that's just one example. You know, we could have, maybe you learn something from your teacher, even if you have a private native English speaking teacher, maybe they teach you one thing, but then a native in a conversation says it in a different way, maybe with a different accent, or it's faster, or they express it in a completely different way, like sit on versus sit in. The point is, you should be preparing, and you can prepare so that you don't have to struggle through this gap by yourself. So this is what I explain in the book, and in my program, Fluent for Life, that's the whole point of it. Like, we give you the learning and the preparation before you get into those conversations, so that you don't have to go through this process where it's basically like teachers give you like a textbook and then say, okay, we're going to learn how to swim today. Here's a textbook, read this textbook about swimming, and now jump into the deep end of the pool. Or go like wander around and now, you know, just be confident. Go out and try to find people to speak with, and then you will become fluent at some point. Nobody really tells you exactly how it works, but this process, this is what most people deal with, and it doesn't have to be that way. That's why I wrote the book. That's why I created the course, all of that stuff, so that people can actually get that help and feel prepared even before they get into conversations. So the idea of the preparation gap is actually very simple. I didn't need a whole video to explain that, but it was interesting how we had a number of examples about people being stuck, you know, for particular vocabulary or grammar in that. And so most people, because lessons are not giving you what you need, now you have to go out and try to find it yourself. And that's where most people get stuck. And it's difficult. This is the same thing I had to go through for learning Japanese. Like, I took lessons and I tried to study textbooks and all that, but it didn't really make me feel ready and prepared for conversation. So now it was my job to do that. I had to go through the preparation gap and deal with all that myself. And some people do make it. Like, I became fluent as a result, but it was difficult. You know, it was easier than learning the traditional way, because I started actually erasing doubts, and I realized that was the issue. But it would have been much faster if I had a teacher to do it with me. All right. So if you have any questions, that's you feeling, okay, there's a disconnect here, there's an issue, something that's actually stopping me from being able to express myself. So if your lessons are not giving you what you need, then you still need to figure that out some way if you have this. All right. So if you want to be able to express yourself confidently and fluently, then again, either you're going to learn with some lessons and then have to go through the preparation gap to get there, or you can just have me do it all for you. So give you the lessons and help you learn and help you feel prepared for conversations, just like I do in these videos. But we go even further than this, you know, helping you hear things from different accents or different speeds, different contexts, all the different things I'm trying to do, which are to prepare you for real communication. But let me know if you have any questions about that. But you'll notice that a lot of people here, not just in this video, but every video I do, it's people who typically learned something, did not feel confident about it, and now are in the preparation gap where they're like, okay, now I have to figure these things out on my own. But it doesn't have to be that way. All right, let's see here. Let's see. Raza says, can dull person learn English? You mean people who are not so smart? Well, I mean, yeah, anybody can learn English. Like, if you think about children all over the world, even smart kids or not so smart kids, everybody learns to speak their language. It's a pretty easy thing to do. The difficult thing is that, like, a lot of teachers are dull. Like they're not very smart about how they're preparing people for real communication. The point is not simply to just say, hey, here's a rule, now go and memorize it. That's a stupid thing to do because you're not actually preparing people to speak. Instead, you actually need to make people feel confident and certain about what they want to say so they speak fluently. So if your goal is just to learn the language, I just want to know what the rules are, and you're not trying to speak, then traditional lessons are fine for that. But if you actually want to speak, either you are going to learn something from a class and then you're going to spend most of the time trying to do it by yourself. Hopefully you reach the point where you can actually enjoy real communication, but I make it a lot easier. So really, like, these are the two options that you have if you want to speak. All right. And Elif says, can I get a printed version of the book? Well, it's not finished yet, but we'll see how popular it becomes. I may produce a printed version in the future, or you could just print it out yourself and read what it is. All right, CNC says, what is the strangest phrasal verb in English for you? The strangest phrasal verb? Strangest phrasal verb. I don't know. I would have to see a list of them, I guess. I mean, I can see how there would be things like something like screw over. Like, I know what that means, but I'm sure most of the people watching this video might have trouble with it. You know, maybe either you know it or you do not. But like the kind of tricky thing about understanding phrasal verbs is, again, often people are trying to memorize lists of them rather than connect things like this to real situations. So to screw over, typically you screw someone over, like you're screwing over someone. This is where, like, you're making that situation bad for them, or you do, you know, kind of, I don't know, like a friend of mine is, I don't know, trying to get a date with a girl, and I don't know, I tell the girl that I'm like, oh, he's got, I don't know, like a health problem or something. I'm kind of screwing the guy over, or I'm like stealing money from somebody like that. I'm screwing someone over. So this is, again, it's not like so strange, but I'm more trying to think about it, about what would be strange for a learner. And it's usually if the meaning of the phrasal verb is quite different from what you might expect. But it takes a little bit of a story or a connection to understand what it means. DYT says, or DBT, can you talk more about lessons in your Fluent for Life course? Thank you very much. So the purpose of Fluent for Life is this, like what I just explained about how people typically aren't learning or feeling prepared when they get into real conversations. So that's the idea. And I need to update the page to explain that better, I think. But that's the basic idea of how Fluent for Life works. So most people are learning a little bit of the language and then trying to speak. And they think that if I learn something, then I don't know, maybe I can speak, probably I can't, so I have to practice. I have to practice speaking and that kind of thing. In my approach, I do the opposite. So instead of having you learn something but not really feel confident about it, the whole point of all the practice here is because typical lessons don't help you understand things well. It's really weird, you know, it's like the teachers are not doing a good job, so learners have to go and do it yourself. It'd be kind of like if I take my car to a mechanic to get it fixed. So this is the mechanic and I say, hey, can you fix my car? And the mechanic says, sure, but they don't actually fix it. And so now I have the car and I have to fix it myself. That's what's happening with people typically learning like that. Anyway, the main idea for Fluent for Life is we want to make sure you feel confident and certain before you speak. So if I can prepare you for the different ways that natives will talk and actually help you understand language so you feel confident and certain about using it, then you will speak. So you don't have to spend all this time in the preparation gap trying to meet people to practice with and have, whatever, maybe I find some speaking partners or I do not, or I'm trying to have lessons or whatever. All of that stuff, it's typically a waste of time. You can do it, but it's really inefficient. It's just much faster and easier to just get the training you need to understand the language. That way you don't have a bunch of questions that stop you from speaking. So that's the kind of long and short of the program, but you can click on the link in the description. I will be updating that at some point soon. But the idea is that most people are stuck because of this preparation gap. Does everybody get this idea about there's lessons and then now you have a responsibility to prepare for that? That's why everybody talks about speaking practice. Does everybody get that? I want to make sure it's clear, and I'm talking about it here because it will be in chapter 7 of my book. So part of what I've done as I've explained things as I've gone through the book, like I'm releasing the book in chapters, in stages, because I want people to let me know if they understand ideas or if they don't make sense. So let me know if the idea of the preparation gap makes sense. Again, the basic idea is lessons are not preparing you for real communication. So it's your responsibility here to go out and try to practice or learn, or like what you're doing now, watching YouTube videos like this and trying to understand how to get fluent. But if you had someone who's actually there, it's my responsibility to teach you the language and make you feel confident about using it. Then when you get into conversations, you actually feel confident and ready to speak. So it's not about like, okay, I'm going to show you some words and not actually help you, and then it's your turn to spend all your time figuring out what I'm going to do and how I'm going to learn, so that maybe eventually you become a good speaker. A lot of people just struggle with this because it's a really silly system when you look at it. It's like, wait a minute, teachers are not actually providing you what you need, so now it's your job to go out and get that? That's weird. I thought that's what I was paying the teacher for. The teacher is supposed to teach me stuff. And this is what I thought when I went through this same experience as a learner. So I'm in classes. I remember classes like French class in high school and Spanish class in college, and I was just like, they're not teaching me anything. I can get this same information just by reading a book. It's easy to do that, but it's not actually helping me feel confident about speaking. So now it's my responsibility to prepare on my own, which is what most people do. And so maybe you learn with apps or private teachers or whatever, but most of the time people are not actually feeling confident and prepared when they get into real conversations. And that's why they struggle. That's why they have these doubts. Does that make sense? Let me know. This is, again, like the big picture of how learning typically happens, and this is why people think it's actually a difficult process. They just assume that this is the way everybody does it, so it's okay. Of course my language lessons were bad because everybody's language lessons are bad, and so now I have to go out and actually practice speaking. It doesn't have to be like that. This is the alternative here. So that's what Fluent for Life is all about. So just like I explained in my book, the point is, if you can feel confident and certain about your words before you speak, then when you do speak, you will feel ready and excited to express yourself. That's the basic idea. So it's the exact opposite of what most people typically do. Although I do, I think, a very good job of actually teaching people. I do not do a good job of explaining like on the page, so I want to update that. That's my plan to explain Fluent for Life better. But Fluent for Life is basically solving this problem. So you can choose if you want to speak English, or really whatever kind of language you're trying to speak. Either you're going to learn things and then spend a lot of time, like you're kind of wandering around and thinking about how to learn, and then hopefully becoming fluent, hopefully, eventually. Or you could actually just learn with someone who knows how to prepare you for that. And if you address your doubts, answer your questions, and you don't have any fears when you're in conversations, you will naturally speak. That's how it works. Let's see here. I have a couple more questions. So let me know if you have specific questions about Fluent for Life or anything else. But the book also explains a lot too. I think these are one of them. Yank off, yank out. Yep. To yank something, you could like pull it out very quickly. What's your take on them? Yeah, like they're commonly used. Amrit Pulse says, looking pretty sharp, sir. All right, well, I'm glad I can be impressive in just a white t-shirt. Tsubasa Doryu Sensei, Ohio, nice to see you there. A says, good energy, and A again, different A or EY. In your opinion, what word has overlapping conditions and is confusing? I don't know. There are lots of words like that, but it's not really confusing for me. It's more what would be confusing for you. So you let me know if you have a question about something. Again, if you have a doubt, it's typically because lessons only gave you some partial instruction. Like they taught you one thing, but didn't think to prepare you with others. So that's why you get surprised and you're losing your words in conversations. So it doesn't have to be that way. If you actually prepare for conversations before you have them, then you will feel ready and excited to speak. Let's see. And CNC again says, teachers are sloppy many times because they follow the English books to teach us all the time. Yeah, I think teachers don't take enough responsibility to actually get people fluent. They just assume that's not their job. It's a teacher's job to tell you what the language is, and then it's your job as the learner to go out and try to learn it. Again, that's the whole point about the preparation gap. That's like where most people are actually trying to teach themselves, and that's why you got lots of people watching YouTube videos like this, because they're in the preparation gap because traditional lessons did not help them. All right, a couple more here. Right, so good energy again, and CNC laughing again. Don't screw over with her. Well, in that case, you would say like, don't screw her over. Don't screw her over if you're talking about like a specific individual. You don't want to do something bad to them. Falante says, a great teacher. It's my pleasure. Deborah says, a very good explain. You would say very good explanation. Very good explanation. Very good. And Couramment again, what do you think about learning fixed phrases and imitate by saying those fixed phrases in real conversations? What do you mean fixed phrases? What is a fixed phrase? You mean like some particular things? Again, like the example, if I understand you, is you should learn something here and then try to fit that into real communication. Sometimes it will work. Sometimes it will not. So for example, let's say you mean fixed phrase, like here's a specific thing that you should learn for a situation like hello. So the traditional hello, you can say hello, that's a perfectly fine word to use, but maybe you get into a real conversation and people say something completely different. They say hi, hey, what's up, how's it going, how you been, how's the family, lots of things like that. If you only learn hello, you're going to be unprepared for all of the other things that people might say. So that's the point. It's like, it's not just about learning the language, it's about preparation for all of the things you might encounter in a real conversation. And that's the thing that like most of the stuff that people do for traditional lessons, it's really just teaching you the language. It's not about preparing you to speak. Because knowing words that's actually a small part of communication. It's like, not only do you need to know the word, but you need to know the right way to use it, or how should we apply that in a different situation? How can I adapt spontaneously so that like this, like I don't have a plan for this video other than teaching you about the preparation gap, that it's a thing and that most people are stuck in it because again, it's difficult. You're trying to basically teach yourself, like, how do I learn how to fix my car because my mechanic could not fix it for me? So now I have to go online and watch YouTube videos about how to fix my car. It just sounds ridiculous. It's like, why did I pay a mechanic to fix my car if I have to fix it myself? So most people watching this video are now in this phase where they're trying to get fluent by themselves or whatever. They had lessons in school or they took courses or whatever, but they still don't feel confident in conversations. So that's where they're here. So if you do not want to be there, you should read my book for sure. It'll explain how all this works, but Fluent for Life just does it for you. That's the whole point. That's why I created the program. All right, we've got a couple left, and then I think we are finished. Already gone 80 minutes. Look at that. All right, so APOC says, don't forget to like, guys. This is kind of a psychological thing, but it's better to say remember to like, because if you use the word forget in there, then people will be forgetting to like. So just say remember to like. Tom, nice to see you there. I'm late. It's all right. Remember, these videos are saved so you can watch them anytime you like. And Song says we should study listening skill first or speaking skill first. I've talked about this quite a bit, but I explain this in the book also, which you can get by clicking on the link in the description below this video. But the point is not listening versus speaking. It's, do you understand what you want to say and feel confident about it, or do you not? That's it. So if I, for example, say, like, I'm going to introduce you, here's a new kind of fruit for you from Japan. It's called, I'll cut it open for you. You can see on the inside of it, little seeds in there. It's called a shikwasa. I don't even know how to write it in English. Let's see, maybe kuwasa. Shikwasa. So this is a name of a fruit in Japanese. Now, we could talk about the fruit. I could try to explain it to you, or I could just have you taste the fruit and then you would know what it is. Okay? So which do you think would be faster and easier and better for you to know the fruit? Should I teach you about it, give you an explanation, or should I just let you try the fruit? In that case, it's not about listening or speaking. It's just what's the easiest, fastest way to make that connection where I understand something. So people are always thinking, should I listen first or speak first or whatever? And it's like, none of that matters. The important thing is, do you understand and feel confident about saying what you want to say? If you do not, then you're not going to speak. And that's the whole point of this preparation gap here. So it doesn't matter if you're learning something and then your teacher says, okay, class, everybody repeat after me, like now repeat the word hello, 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 hello. So I'm speaking, I'm repeating the word hello. But if in real conversations people say something different, I will be unprepared. I will be surprised. I will not be able to handle that situation. Okay? So the idea is not like listening versus speaking. It's just, do I understand something well or not? And for me, I can actually guide you through helping you understand and feel prepared so that when you do speak, you will feel confident. That's the whole point. So it's not about just like speaking or listening or whatever. It's for the particular thing you're learning, like knowing what a fruit tastes like. It's much better just to try the fruit rather than getting an explanation about it. Okay? So same thing for learning vocabulary. Like if I can show you something with an image, like drawing a picture, then that's going to be a lot easier for you than me giving you a description about it. All right. So it's not about like, should I learn with my eyes or should I learn with my ears? You know, like that's kind of a silly distinction. I should use whatever is best for the situation. All right. And so when you learn with me, like what we do in Fluent for Life, you're going to do a whole bunch of things like that. But it's just whatever is appropriate for the situation. All right, let's see. Mendu says, you're always on point, explaining properly. Well, that's my job. Like most people are not giving you a good explanation about something. If you leave a lesson and you feel confused, it's not your fault. It's the fault of the teacher who did not explain it properly. Even for me, if I don't explain something properly, that means I need to try explaining it in a different way. Okay? So for anything like that, it's not like, here's the lesson. It's, do you understand it or not? That's my responsibility as the teacher to make sure you understand the language. That's why I can guarantee what I do in Fluent for Life, because I know how to teach. I know how to make people understand the language and feel confident about using it. If you feel prepared when you get into conversations, you will speak well. You will enjoy conversations. People will say, wow, like what English-speaking country are you from? You know, your English sounds great and you're able to communicate well. You can really tell the difference when people actually feel confident before they get into a conversation. Song again, say, can you tell specific your courses? So I already explained this a little bit, but again, you can click on the links. Even before you join Fluent for Life, I recommend people read my book. So this is the new book I'm working on right now. It's called The Strangest Fluency Secret. This will be the last thing I teach about this. We'll leave the preparation gap for now. But just to sum up what I do, typically what people are doing, again, the idea of the preparation gap here is you will learn and then speak. And then hopefully at some point you get fluent. That's the idea. What I do is the opposite. I'm actually trying to help you get fluent so you can speak. So that's the point of the book. That's the point of Fluent for Life. The whole point is I can help you understand something and feel confident about using it even before you talk, because you don't need to talk a lot to develop understanding about something, you know? So this way, like this is where you have the preparation gap. Right here, what people think of as like learning, and I'm using apps and speaking practice, and people don't know exactly what method they should be using to learn. All of that stuff here, this is you trying to do it by yourself. So because lessons typically didn't help you understand, now you have to try to speak. Now you're in the preparation gap, and maybe you get to fluency, maybe you do not. A lot of people don't. But if a good teacher can help you feel fluent before you speak, and you can understand this even with just a simple example, like I showed before, like sit on versus maybe sit in. So we talked about that. If you can understand one thing like that, you can understand thousands of things like that, and you will feel much more confident about speaking. So the point is, it's an unbelievable thing when you look at it, and that's why I call it The Strangest Fluency Secret. That's the name of the book. The strangest fluency secret is that you can become fluent so you speak, instead of what people typically do, which is trying to speak a lot until they become fluent. So this way, I have found from my own experience and also from helping lots of learners that this way is much more difficult. This way is much faster and easier. It's an alternative to doing things this way. This way can get you fluent, but it's just a lot more difficult, and many people fail because you don't have any direction. It's like you're in a boat and you don't really know exactly what to do. You're just trying different things, and hopefully maybe you get fluent. But if you actually would like to feel confident before you speak, it's easy to do. It's just like I'm doing right in these videos about answering questions and helping you understand things like a native and preparing you so that when you get into conversations, you feel ready to express yourself. All right? So if you're uncertain about Fluent for Life, I recommend just reading the book first. And you can even try doing those things yourself, as many people do. So they get into the book and they're like, oh, wow, this actually makes a lot of sense. It's interesting that, it's possible you could do that. I didn't know you could get fluent before you speak. But it makes sense when you think about, even in conversations, most of the practice that people think they're doing, if I'm speaking with, like, let's say I'm trying to improve my Japanese by speaking, what I'm really doing is listening to other people, and I'm trying to absorb that Japanese. So it's not really my words that are improving my own speaking, it's me learning things from other people. Like, oh, I didn't know I could express something in a particular way, and now I do. Just like you're watching this video with me speaking, you're seeing examples of how I do something, and that's how you come to improve your own understanding. And so you think, oh, Drew said this, I didn't know you could do that. That's interesting. You can express it like you can say sit on a chair or sit in a chair, and now I know why. And now I feel confident about using both of those things. Okay, maybe you learn even more examples of things like talking about sitting in chairs, and you focus on that, and wow, you really understand a lot about even sitting on a chair. But that vocabulary understanding leads to you speaking confidently. So it's not like the typical way of you learn and then you speak and then get fluent. You could do that. Many people try, but a lot of people are not successful because it's really difficult. Again, the teacher didn't prepare you, so now you have to prepare yourself. Like the mechanic who did not fix your car, so now you're fixing it and you have to learn how to fix a car to fix the car. It's crazy. So like when I realized like, oh, actually you could just do the opposite, that's when I finally got fluent. All right. So I struggled with this way for 15 years. Then I started doing this, and very quickly I was just even like this. You can understand one thing, you feel more confident about it, and that proves the method. It's like, oh, look at that. I understood it better, and you watching this video right now, you're not having a conversation with me. I mean, you might be. Maybe you're repeating after me or saying things with me, but you don't have to. I can give you that understanding so you feel confident about using it. All right? So that's the idea about Fluent for Life. Anyway, I think we are done, though. Tom again. I prefer to watch live. Yeah, I get it. I know that it's all psychology, though. You get to feel like you're in the live experience. Menu says, Van, you can kindly explain step by step how to start, or Van, or are you saying can, how to start learning English for understanding. Get the book. I've already done that. So if you click on the link in the description below this book, or below this video, you can get the book. So it's called The Strangest Fluency Secret, and it will show you exactly how to do it. So I'm not finished with it yet, but up through chapter 6, you get immediate access to all that. You will get chapters 7 and 8. When those are finished, it's taken me a while to think about those because like this is really the core idea, but I can't tell people that at the beginning because it's unbelievable. It sounds unbelievable, right? How do you get fluent before you speak? How does that even work? It sounds ridiculous. But when you think about what people do, this is actually a much more ridiculous way of learning because it's very inefficient, takes a long time, but everybody believes they have to learn that way. That's why I wrote the book. Because I showed like you don't have to learn it that way. There's an alternative. Okay? Now I won't tell people that I think this is the way people actually should be learning. You need to discover that on your own. But it's an alternative that's waiting, and you don't need to, like, even if you don't join Fluent for Life, if you apply this yourself, you will see that it makes sense and actually teaches you the language. All right. Song says, when you started study Japanese, did you look up dictionary English Japanese? Yeah. So when I was first learning Japanese, that's what I was doing. I was getting typical lessons, trying to understand things, and people began with, it was all the usual stuff. And I'm trying to watch TV shows and everything that most people would do. Although this was 20 years ago, so we didn't have AI. YouTube was not available then. I talk about this in the book, how I went to the local library and was learning from books there. And so I was actually in the library reading children's books. And I still do that today because it's helpful for understanding Japanese the same way a Japanese child would understand it. So it is possible to become fluent and feel confident about things before you say them. You don't have to go through this process of learning and then stumbling and then making mistakes or wondering like how you should be learning. You just learn and actually understand and actually prepare for the variety and unpredictability of real communication. It's not just about learning the language. You actually need to feel prepared for communication, just like anything else. I don't know why language learning it's like its own special thing where you pay the mechanic and then the mechanic doesn't fix your car and now you have to fix it yourself. Does anybody else do that? Does any other way of learning work that way? I guess if I go to college, I still have to study things or whatever, but usually the teachers are telling me something, trying to teach me some kind of information. Anyway, there is some value in that, but I think a lot of people struggle with this because there's still doubts. So when you're in a conversation, especially for adults trying to learn another language, if you feel nervous or unsure about what you want to say, then it's going to be more difficult to speak. So clear up those doubts before you speak. Get fluent first. Feel like you actually understand the language, and then you will speak. The speaking is the natural result of this. Now, Stephen Krashen talked about the same thing. He had the same idea. He found the same thing I did, where like the speaking is the result of understanding the language well. So that's why he talks about comprehensible input. I talk about comprehensible input, but people get stuck on just getting input and just having it be comprehensible instead of actually feeling confident and certain about what you want to say. So yes, you should understand. You should be learning with English that you can understand in English, so you don't need the dictionary, or you can use an English to English dictionary if you need one. But if you understand the language first, then you will feel confident about speaking. That's the whole idea. All right. I think we all did get scammed for traditional language learning. Again, I don't know why language learning gets like a pass for this, like to say when someone gets a pass. So if I went to my mechanic and he didn't fix my car, like I wouldn't give him a pass about that. I would say, hey, fix my car. That's what I paid you for. But in the language class, it's like, hey, I took lessons with you, but why can't I speak? Like the teacher would say, oh, well, you didn't go out and practice. It's like, what? Like it's something, I don't know. It's a great scam though, if it is a scam. But I got taken in by that. I got tricked, I guess. But that's why I'm trying to show people that there is a better way. It doesn't have to be like that. Mendo again says, thank you so much to direct me to your book, Chapter 6. I have been struggling for years. Where should I start? Understand first how much is the book. It's $9 currently, but you can click on the link in the description. I recommend you read the whole thing, but you should get through it pretty quickly. It's a very easy to read book. It's at an elementary school, like 5th, 6th grade reading level. So most people watching this video should be able to get through it easily. So don't just skip to chapter 6. I want people to actually understand how it works. The basic idea, if you want to know, is just this. So what I'm proving with the book is that you can actually become fluent before you speak. And it just means you understand something and you feel prepared before you talk. So instead of doing the typical thing where you try to talk before you feel prepared, which doesn't really make any sense, but you can do it. It is possible, but it's just like, I don't know. It seems like, is that me? Am I the only person who thinks that sounds crazy? That you should learn and then speak and then you get fluent by speaking? And I explain this in a lot of detail in the book, but it's really difficult for many people to speak if they don't feel certain and confident about what they want to say. It's like if I'm standing here and someone told me to even describe fixing a car, since we're talking about mechanics, if I start talking about how to fix a car, I don't know anything about that. I'm going to speak very badly about that because I don't know. I don't know that vocabulary. I don't know how it works, you know. I do understand this, and that's why I'm able to talk about it. But again, the point is to know things well and feel confident before you speak. So click on the link in the description if you'd like to learn more about how to do that. So now, do you think in English when you speak Japanese? No. So typically when I'm speaking in Japanese, like I'm just describing things in whatever way I feel is appropriate for the situation. Like, trying to think about a good example. What I'm not doing is first thinking in English about what I want to say and then speaking in Japanese. I just start speaking in Japanese. So I can think in Japanese about something I want to say, but it's like me speaking in English right now. Like I might think about something, there could be multiple ways I could express something and then I can speak, but that's how it works. Let's see, and Tom again, today we have lots of questions, pretty neat. Well, that's why we're here. Again, the whole point is if you have questions about learning or whatever it is that's stopping you from speaking, if you answer those questions, what would stop you from speaking? The whole point is that's it. We can eliminate the questions and the doubts, and then you will start speaking. What do you think about study phrases and sentences in daily conversation through Friends sitcom? I mean, like, if you watch Friends and your English is not very good, you're probably not going to understand a lot of that. I don't know why people are, I don't know, it's like you want to, what is really the purpose of that? It's like you're just getting examples of native vocabulary from a TV show, and then what are you doing with that information? I understand why people want to enjoy, you just like watching a TV show or whatever, and you can get a lot of useful vocabulary there. But again, it's typically more like people learn phrases, but then they're not using them because they don't actually feel certain and confident about what they're learning. So yes, like you can learn from Friends, you can learn from all kinds of things. And I actually explain lots of different examples of how you can learn from things like Friends in the book. But again, the point is not simply to know some random vocabulary from Friends. It's actually to prepare yourself and know the vocabulary really well so you have no doubt about what you want to say. That's the idea. So again, it doesn't matter like, do I recommend watching Friends or this show or that show or podcast or whatever. Find something at your level that you can understand. And I explain this in detail in the book. Find something at your level that you understand that's native content. Like for me, I still enjoy kids' books in Japanese. I'll also watch like adult shows, but I like looking at kids' books because it teaches a lot of useful vocabulary in a simple way. So, I mean, I don't know, I guess I could watch other regular, I do watch some TV, I guess, in Japan. Not a lot, but I'll watch it sometimes. So if you enjoy the show and you like learning that content and it's not too difficult for you, then that's great. But often what happens is you're getting a lot of information and you're not getting much review from that. So you will learn some phrases, probably forget them, and then not feel comfortable using those in conversations. Does that happen to you? Do you learn things in a conversation and then not use them? like it happens. It happens to all of us. It's a pretty common thing, and that's because people think they just need to memorize a bunch of phrases and they're not actually preparing to use things in real conversations. That's the big piece that when we get into this speaking part, the preparation gap where you get stuck and then you have to try to figure out everything by yourself. It gets a lot more difficult that way. So I don't really have a particular show or whatever, but find something you like at your level, but make sure you understand it without a doubt. I learned most grammar without even memorizing anything, but from real situations, as you said. Yes, and that's the same way you learned grammar in your native language. It's not. This isn't like like an amazing thing. This is the way people should be doing it. It should be easy. Jeffrey says, hello, I'm French. I think I remember you from before. Tom again, I think that most people think that they will learn English easier watching Friends because it's a funny TV show. So perhaps that would be easy to learn while laughing. Sure. I mean, I don't care what show people are interested in. If you like Friends, go ahead and watch Friends. Watch whatever you like. It doesn't matter. But the point is, if you're learning with content, but then you don't understand it, or you don't feel confident using it, you're wasting your time. You're just watching a show. Maybe you develop a passive vocabulary so you can understand when other people are speaking. But I don't think I've ever actually met someone who was like, I just watched Friends and kept on watching it until finally I got fluent. It's like, all right, maybe that person is out there, but I'd like to know more specific details about what they did and how long it took them and other things like that. But yes, if you enjoy Friends, go ahead, enjoy Friends. Again, I don't want to tell people what to learn because the whole point is you should be free to learn the things you're interested in. But remember, just learning the information is not going to be enough for most people. You need to actually prepare for real communication. You need to hear those phrases used in a variety of ways. You need to really understand them well. So that way, when they're used in a real conversation, so not just in Friends, but maybe you hear them elsewhere, you build that network in your mind, that spider web that really helps you understand the vocabulary, and that's what makes you feel confident using it. So if you enjoy Friends, fantastic. That's like last ones. I prefer watching English anyway. Well, enjoy. I mean, even people with me, like, honestly, you need a team to get fluent. And that's why I have a team of people in Fluent for Life, where you get lots of exposure to a variety of natives. If it's only me teaching you stuff, that would probably be quite difficult. Even if I think I'm the most amazing teacher ever, I still need to give you examples of natives doing things in different ways, hearing different accents, different ways of expressing things, all of that. So you really need to be prepared for that. I can teach you a lot, but I still need a team to really prepare you efficiently and systematically. It's basically what natives do, but much more systematic and faster. All right. And APOC says, what advice can you give to people who are having trouble learning a language? Just read my book. That's it. That's the whole reason I wrote it. That is the advice. The advice is get fluent before you speak. So don't put pressure on yourself to try to talk. Actually try to understand it really well. So pick even something like this is a very specific thing. Why do natives say sit on or sit in? Why do we say that? If you understand this, you will feel more confident about using it. But you don't repeat the word, okay, I'm just going to sit and I heard my teacher said sit on. So now I'm going to say sit on the chair, sit on the chair. And I repeat that again and again. I'm not developing better understanding or greater fluency simply by repeating that phrase again and again. But if I hear a quick explanation about why we do it, why do we say sit on or sit in? Why do we do that? If I know the answer to that, I will feel confident about hearing those and using those in a real conversation. So that's one example of how you can feel confident and fluent before you speak. That way, when somebody is talking about sitting in a chair or sitting on a chair, you feel like, I'm ready for that. Okay? You should feel ready when you get to this point here when you're actually in conversations. All right, song again. Are the conversations between the characters common in daily conversation in America? Oh, if you're talking about like, you mean friends, like the kind of dialogue that they have? Yeah, I mean they use everyday English that people would be using. If you enjoy Friends, watch Friends. You don't need my permission to watch that. Enjoy it. You can learn English from a lot of sources. The problem is not like content being available. It's that most people don't actually become fluent with the stuff they learn because they don't know it very well. They understand it maybe when they hear it, but that's it. And they don't feel confident about using it. So if you're already watching episodes of Friends, maybe you're learning things, but do you feel confident using what you learn? I don't know. You can answer that for yourself, but that's the real question. Do you feel confident using what you learn? And then CNC says, I'd like to learn with Looney Tunes, but to be honest, I don't want to end up speaking like a cartoon. Yeah, and often like Looney Tunes, they don't talk very much either. Like I'll watch, Tom and Jerry with my kids sometimes, but it's not a lot of dialogue there. Sometimes Tom will say something, but very rarely. But yeah, if you enjoy cartoons, watch cartoons. There's nothing wrong with that. All right, it looks like we've gotten to the end of that. DV is back. What do we should study effortless English method for beginners? I don't know. Well, effortless English is a different thing, as AJ Hogue. But yeah, if you want to learn about that, you can search YouTube for effortless English. But from what I understand, it's basically, it sounds like the idea, I think, is like it should be effortless speaking, but it's quite a bit of effort to learn. But it's basically, I don't know, kind of similar to this, kind of. I don't know. I don't know much about it, I guess. I focus on what I do, but again, if you'd like to learn that way, find out more about it. I don't want to tell you something that is not accurate about it. But just from what I know, pretty much any learning method can be evaluated in this way. Does it give you certainty about your words before you speak? That's it. So when you're learning something, like, am I watching Friends? Am I reviewing that in a way that actually helps me speak? If I do, then yes, I will feel good about using that method, and it will help me communicate. But if that is not actually helping me feel confident about my words, then I probably should not be using it. So go ahead and experiment, try different things. But what I do here is helping people feel confident about their words before they speak. So you really understand things well, you get lots of good review. And yeah, I think AJ does know well about how to help people learn, although we're probably different about this specific idea. Let's see. And I used to get a kick out of watching cartoons when I was younger. Well, you can still enjoy cartoons even today, however old you are. All right, well, hopefully you have enjoyed this video. If you have, do click the like button. And if you would like to learn more about this, although I do explain things in detail, it's a lot better explained in the book. And so for people who really want to understand how to speak, that's how you should do it. What about US, UK song, rap? Is it good for studying English? Again, don't worry about a specific media like rap music or whatever for learning. The things that you want to talk about in your daily life. Do you want to rap in your daily life when you go to the grocery store and talk about English? Is that what you want to do? If you think about that, it's I could learn some rap lyrics, I guess, for Japanese or whatever, but mostly I'm just trying to talk with people in an everyday way, and so I just need to see how everyday people speak. And that's basically it. Can you speak any Hindi? No, I do not know any Hindi. But yeah, so don't worry about a specific thing you should learn. What you should do is get the book so you can actually understand how it all works. Mendu says, thank you so much to broaden our mindset in today's lesson. I wake up and I open my phone and found your live lesson. Very good. Is the book free or you need to bought? So yes, it's $9. But again, if you have $9, you should be able to get the book. You can either get the book or you can even watch videos about me talking about various chapters here on the channel. The book is really for people who want to get all this nice and quickly and easily and see how it's all explained in detail. But again, if you don't even want to pay for the book, just watch some recent videos here on the channel about it. But this is the whole idea. It's really that simple. If you can get fluent first, you will feel confident when you speak. That way you don't have to have that preparation gap where you're struggling to express yourself. What is the difference between Fluent for Life and Native Fluency Blueprint? Well, Native Fluency Blueprint is included in Fluent for Life, but Fluent for Life is the whole system of all the training that basically make sure you don't have to go through the preparation gap. So if you're looking for something that teaches you a bunch of useful English and helps you, the point more about the Native Fluency Blueprint is I'm trying to teach you some techniques that can help you speak better with the vocabulary you already know, although you do learn some more vocabulary in the program. But part of that is helping you know your current vocabulary better so you can speak better today with what you know already. Fluent for Life is really for people who want the whole system, where they want me to actually get them fluent in a whole bunch of stuff. So if you just want to be able to speak better today with some very simple techniques that can improve your pronunciation and things like that, that's what the blueprint is for. But if you want the whole system that's going to get you fluent step by step, that's what Fluent for Life is for. So Fluent for Life also, again, includes the blueprint. All right, if you have any questions, you can also mail us at info@englishanyone.com, but we're always happy to answer questions. But for people, especially if you're thinking about getting Fluent for Life, I really recommend you read the book first, because it will really get you excited about this way of learning. It will show you that it works. It's got lots of examples in it. And you will feel, learning doesn't have to be a difficult and frustrating and long process. I really can feel confident about my words before I speak so that I feel confident in conversation. All right, if you'd like to learn more about those, you can click on the links in the description, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.